welcome to this episode of Healthwise 360, a creation of Clarissa Burt, founder of In the Limelight Media. And I'm your show host, Chrissy Cordingley, and you'll be able to see this interview on In the Limelight TV, which is distributed on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and 100 other smart TV apps. The audio version of this interview can be heard wherever you listen to your podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be interviewing Monique Verpoort. She is a registered social worker and certified practitioner in the modality of emotional freedom techniques, EFT Tapping. She is the author of Is This All There Is? Living a Life Beyond Obligation, and has worked in the field of children's mental health for close to 20 years. So welcome, Monique, to the show.
Thanks very much. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
So maybe tell us a little bit about what does it mean to be emotionally free? What is emotional freedom?
Yeah, that's the question of the year. Yeah. So, emotional freedom really is, if I were to put it in a neat little package, it's really about being able to make choices in your behavior instead of responding from these limiting beliefs that we all carry. So, it's a freedom to kind of make choices that are coming from the part of us that wants the best for us, that is the most evolved, and it kind of removes the filtering of fear and self-doubt and all those things that really, keep the reins on us taking action. So that's part of it. The other part of it is being able to be in that place of peace and calm, regardless of what's going on around us. So, I mean, today, 2023, crazy world we're living in. So much chaos and negativity, and it's very easy. I listened to your show about highly sensitive people, and surprise, I am one of them as well.
Me too. That's yes, absolutely.
Exactly. So we have to protect ourselves, right? And for anybody, it's very easy to, if we allow all that stuff to come in, it can really put a huge damper on our well-being on every level. So that is part of emotional freedom. And it's also, approaching life in a way that we are responding rather than reacting, right? So it's very easy to sort of, when the analogy with the stress bucket or whatever other analogy we have, when it starts to overflow, it's easy to lose it. It's easy to snap. And it's really easy to make choices that are not really coming from a place of empowerment, because we're making those choices out of fear and out of just a lowered frequency, if you will.
Yeah, definitely. I find that really fascinating. And I love that a lot of your work is done with children, because adults, of course, we have limiting beliefs. We've grown up with so many different messages in many different environments, but it can start as early as childhood, right? Where people start to question their worth or they start to maybe mimic other people that aren't healthily responding to their situation, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first of all, I wanted to say about that, the second point you raised is that, yeah, even in utero, I mean, we have research now is we're picking up on the stress and anxiety of our mother when we're in utero. And some kids come into the world, they're stressed out already because they're absorbing a lot of what's going on for the parent, and then coming into an atmosphere where maybe there's a lot going on within that family unit, however you define family. And so some kids really come, it's a rocky start, right? And then other kids, yes, you're totally right. I mean, it's all this messaging that we pick up because ultimately we need to survive. And as young children, we don't have that capacity to do that. So we're dependent on the adults around us to really keep them happy so that they're going to continue to take care of us. And, we tend to kind of mold ourselves in a way that is acceptable, to those, whether it's parents or teachers or whatever. So yes. And, in terms of working with children, this is my vision, because where I am at, I have been in this field for a long time, and I've been planting seeds. How do we get this EFT widely accepted? And it's been a bit of a, not an easy feat, to say the least. I remember back in sort of 2015, it became energy psychology, which is the umbrella term for any kind of therapy that works with the body's energetic system based on, ancient traditional Chinese medicine that works with meridians. But So I had, it became evidence-based back, I think it was 2012. And I made a point of doing this big presentation for the whole agency and having people, tapping along with me, teaching them EFT, but it is a bit of a slow sell. But we have people like Dr. Petta Stapleton from Bond University in Australia, and she is leading. She's an amazing researcher, and they're a little more advanced in terms of getting this into classrooms in Australia than we are here in North America. So it can be done, and this is something that I really want to put my energy and efforts into, having that there. Because can you imagine if every kid in a classroom, they start their day off, doing some self-regulation techniques that can keep them focused on the work they're doing, so accessing their brain, not being so dysregulated and torn in all these different directions. I think it would make a huge difference for kids, their learning, and also just for their emotional needs and so on.
100%. I love that you talked about hypervigilance a little bit. That wasn't what you called it, but that's sort of what I call it, where you're so aware of how others might respond to you that you try to mold yourself. That's what you did say, into someone that isn't going to catch attention or be a burden in any means whatsoever, just so you stay safe and protected. That's a hard thing to let go of, especially as a child and as you grow into an adult. And then with tapping, it's people, it's so funny because there is they talk about cynicism and skepticism on a world stage growing larger than it's ever been in the past. So it's not surprising, but to see some of the things that people do believe work and then not believe that something with science-based evidence it's kind of comical in a way. But can you just tell the audience what EFT is and how they perform it, and if they need special training, that kind of thing?
Right. Yeah. Well, so EFT is basically, I think the easiest way to get this is acupuncture without needles.
Yes.
Right? Because it's the same meridian points. And that is something that, that was a hard sell back in the 70s, but now, I mean, it's everywhere and people don't bat an eyelid, right?
It's so funny. That's what I mean. Like touch myself with my finger. Oh no, that's weird. That's woo. Put a needle in me. Okay, go ahead. Right? Like that's crazy. Like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I love that. Okay, continue on. Sorry, I interrupted.
No, that's okay. This is great because you're speaking for your audience who doesn't know anything about this, right? So it's based on, as I said, traditional Chinese medicine, where we have these energy pathways or meridians that pass through our body, and there are endpoints that surface, throughout the body. But basically, your face, your torso, and your tip of your fingers are exit points for these meridian endpoints or acupoints. And so what happens is that when we can tap, touch, or rub these points, and I'll show them and describe them very shortly, but when we can tap and rub these points, then what happens is it actually sends a calming message to our brain's emotional center, the limbic system, that says, okay, you're calm, no tigers lurking, you're safe. And so it decompresses our nervous system. It's so, we land in our parasympathetic nervous system.
Yes.
And that's basically the beauty of it in terms of a stress reduction methodology. And so anybody can do that. And I'm on a crusade, Chrissy, to let people know about this because, there's such a shortage of mental health services. They're not always accessible. This is something you can do in your own home, or anywhere else. I mean, there are tips that you can use where you're in public, and you can use your fingertips because we have the meridian points there as well. And so this is why it's just such a great additional tool, to any of the other amazing stress reduction techniques. So that's one piece of EFT that is really, it's very democratic.
Yes, absolutely. I love that. Thank you. Yeah. And healthcare is not cheap in the US for sure. And even in Canada, where we can access many things for free, the wait to receive those services is horrendous. So so the more tools we have that we can put in place on our own, the better off we are. Absolutely. So let's talk about women, especially because you have a bit of a message for women that really, it's really important for us to be inward focused. So why is this such a big message for women to start focusing inward on ourselves?
Right, right. Well, and I want to say it's a good message for everybody, but I
Hmm.
really speak to women. First of all, I am a woman. You teach what you most need to learn, right? And
Hmm.
so, knowing that as women, we take on a lot of the stress and the emotions within our relationships. And there's still these conditioned beliefs that over the millennium that we are sort of those nurturers and caregivers and so on, and not to say that men don't take on that role. More and more they are, and loving it, just love the way society is progressing in that way.
Me too.
But there's still that sense of, I need to be there for everybody else. I need to make sure people are happy. And that's fine, but when it's not fine is when it becomes so great that we actually start depriving ourselves of our spiritual and emotional nurturance and physical nurturance, because then we start landing into problems. And especially if you're a type of person that is a giver, always give, 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 and your self-worth comes from that. It's like it feels good to give, right? And that's what we want. But when we are not good at receiving, this is where we have a real imbalance in our energetic balance or resources. So that's when issues surface, and they're often
That's
physical.
when you overgive like that to try and regulate your environment. That's called fawning, correct?
Yes,
Like, yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Because it's a protection mechanism that we had early on in life where we needed to please others to get our needs met. So it's just a pattern that is so
Hmm.
ingrained. And Chrissy, I think it's really important just to emphasize that this is just all so much on a subconscious level. We are not aware. We are operating on autopilot, right? And
Hmm.
we're not. And with tapping, and we've got to get to the point soon. People are going to
Yes,
go,
yes.
what's she talking about?
No, they're gonna find this fascinating. Honest, don't
Okay.
worry.
But with tapping on these points, the beauty is that we start to it's a gateway to connect to our subconscious, which is real power. So it's
Hmm.
as we tap on these points, we're actually often get these little insights that pop up from our subconscious at these little clarity bubbles, and we go, hey, I never thought of it that way before. Or yeah, I remember when I felt this way. This was back in grade 3 when I was standing in front of
Hmm.
the class, having to explain a math equation. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I was just
Hmm.
terrorized by this. And so so it really is that access. And then when you think about it and you tap on these points, as I said, it sends that calming message to the emotional brain.
Hmm.
It kind of takes the charge out of the emotion tied to that memory. So maybe
Yeah.
back in grade 3, I was terrified, but now I can sit there and go, oh God, yeah, man, that was so embarrassing. I felt really humiliated. And then you're kind of disconnecting those emotions from the event. So you can kind of talk about it. And I give you an example of grade 3, but that's sort of a safe example to give. I think a lot of
Hmm.
people have had that experience in one way or another, right?
Yes, definitely. And I like that tapping is, I mean, it's working with the energy center, but it also teaches the brain to think with a different part when you start to get into that cycle of overthinking or emotional thinking, right? That response. The other thing I wanted to say too is I think there's a misconception about stress that people think it's just an emotional response, but it's a physical chemical response. So you mentioned about babies in the womb. Well, of course they do, because you're releasing high amounts of cortisol and adrenaline. These are actual chemicals. You're experiencing a physical reaction. So it is really important to be able to manage your stress and those kinds of things. So that's amazing. So tell us a little more about the tapping. So now you said you were going to show us some of the points,
Yeah.
and how does it work? How does it teach us to be more resilient?
Okay. So first of all, the first point is where they are. So basically, there's, like I said, there are points all over the body, and there's a shorter protocol and a longer. But I'm going to stick with the shorter because
Mm-hmm.
it's very effective as well. So it starts at sort of where your eyebrow point. It's where your eyebrows meet. Right here, and there's a point there, and as I said, you can tap. If you tap gently, you don't want to hurt yourself. You do about 5 to 7 times, just really gently.
So no sledgehammer, that's what you're saying.
Yes. No sledgehammer. No, in the beginning, I'm like whacking my face and I go, no, that's not necessary. So 5 to 7. And then you breathe the deep breath, which we know is super powerful, right? For activating the parasympathetic. You do it at the same time. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Slow, deep breaths. Then you pass to the side of your eyes. There's that bone.
It's so sensitive there too. You can
feel it's very
it,
sensitive. So if you want to like, touch and breathe, that's fine as well. And then underneath the eye. And by the way, I have a graph with all these points on my website, so we can talk.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, absolutely.
Under the eye, there's a bone. And then under the nose. Under the lower lip, so on the chin point.
That's another sensitive area.
Yes. And I'm going to lower my camera a bit here. And then we have our collarbone point. So if you take your fingers and you kind of lead along those two collarbones, and where they kind of meet up front, you go down about an inch and over about an inch as well. And if you rub, chances are pretty good this is going to feel sore, because a lot of our tension gets stuck in these points here. And the more we rub, I can feel like I'm actually sighing, and that's a sign, release. Right? It's a release. A lot of people too cry.
Yes,
because it's like if you go for a massage, and often you can start crying. So because the issues are in your tissues, and so when you're massaging these points, you're actually activating some of the stuck energy, which is really emotion is energy in motion. Mm-hmm. So that's how it shows up in the body. And then the point 4 inches below your armpits. So for ladies, it's kind of where your bra strap is, and that band. So you tap there as well for 5 to 7, and then the top of your head is sort of the point here that you're crossing both hemispheres. So if you kind of make a claw out of your hand and you tap gently there with your fingers, you kind of reaching both parts of your brain there. And there are a lot of meridian points that surface on the top of your head. So, and then breathing, and you do a couple of rounds of that. So that is something that you can do. You don't need words. It's like in that moment, a really good go-to. Do that a couple of times with the breathing. Often, just decompress. You can feel yourself doing that. And so and there are other things as well. I mean, people use it people often get hung up with the words. I mean, if you Google EFT, you're going to find a gazillion things, and then you'll have people talking, and they're talking through words, and people often what stops them from exploring this, they go, oh, I can't remember what she said. Like, what am I supposed to say when I'm doing this? Right. And they just give up. And so that's another message on my crusade, is that you don't need the words. You're just tuning in emotionally to what is going on. Mm-hmm. So if you are angry, or frustrated, and you're tapping, you're already activated. Your system is already activated with that emotion. And so you can just tap through it like this, the deep breath. Another tip that I find for me has been amazing is that when you have something that really gets your goat, like, I had somebody that really triggered me a lot, and I couldn't be in the same room. I couldn't even talk to this person. I would just get so worked up. Yeah. And so I'd find a private spot, and I would voice my truth. So I'd be like, I'm really pissed off with myself. Leave me alone, right? Yeah. Like, and then allowing yourself to maybe even insert some swear words if you want to, things that normally you go, no, I can't talk badly about that person, or no, I shouldn't be saying that. Well, here, you don't need permission, because it's just a way to get it out of your body. Yes. And you're not just venting, but you're actually releasing the energy that's tied to that emotion. And it really, I tell you, it works great for that. So those are the two pieces, I think, that are simple, that people can practice. And in terms of your question, how does it build resilience? Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Stephen Porges, who really taught us a lot about the nervous system, is a fascinating man. He talks about, oh gosh, I've got a mind, vagal theory. Yes. Yeah, that's part of it. Anyway, it'll come to me. But he really sort of describes the nervous system in a way. We have like our freeze response, where we have the shutdown, we have our fight flight, our sympathetic nervous system, and then when we're in ventral vagal, we're sort of in that parasympathetic state where we can actually connect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can connect with others. We're not closed in and constricted upon ourselves, right? We're in a stress state. I don't know about you, but often it's just like we hold that in, and we're not really open to really connecting with others. And so what he talks about is this term, this window of tolerance, and I think it's a really helpful term. And the window of tolerance, if you're somebody who is quite frequently in that stressed out state, he talks about this window of tolerance being very narrow. So that means you get easily irritated. Something happens not going your way, you react, right? Or you just like beat yourself up or whatever. And so the goal of tapping is to kind of increase that window of tolerance so it becomes wider. So that ties in with what I said at the beginning, where you have, crap that happens in your life, but you're not impacted as quickly as you would be normally. And tapping tones the nervous system. So if you make it a daily habit, tie it in with the coffee, tie it in with, after you brush your teeth, tie it in with watching the news. Great time to do it, right? As the news is getting y'all worked up, you can kind of tap through some of those things. So that is the resilience piece. You don't get so, triggered as easily as you would because you've widened your window of tolerance.
Yes. Yeah, I really like that window of tolerance. I have a relative who I'm very close to that has severe pain from a condition that they have, and their window of tolerance is very low. And sometimes we giggle about it because it is so funny, like just something so small will set them off. Right. You're like, are you in pain? Do you need a time out there? But we were giggling last night because we saw a little meme that says, "I'll never turn into a grumpy old man." And then the next sentence was, "I'm really bad that car is orange." Like that's a window of tolerance, right? Like, so the little things can just really all of a sudden become big deals. And that's not a great way to live. I mean, that's, like you said, that's just our instinct. I like to call it our lizard brain, right? It's when the instinct just kicks in and now we're not even consciously thinking about what we're doing.
Exactly. And so that sort of ties in with that idea too, how we can be just so much more productive, in a way, creative, right? Because if we can spend more time in accessing our prefrontal cortex, where all the planning happens, and then we spend more time there, and then we can see those possibilities that we can't see when we're in that constricted, stressed out state. So there's so many benefits, or so many repercussions and ripples from spending more time in parasympathetic.
I love that. And you mentioned that earlier. We want to respond, not react to things. So how can this be integrated into our daily? You talked a little bit about making it a habit, but what are some things we can do when we're in the boardroom or on the bus or somewhere where there's lots of people and we don't want to be like in front of everybody? How do we do that?
Yeah. So one of the ways I talked about the fingers. So I'm going to have to sort of demonstrate so people are not seeing this, but so the points on the fingertips, if you look at your thumbnail, for instance, right here, if you hold your hand towards you, I think that's the best way to describe it. Right along the thumb, there is a point. There's a point there, and then the same with the other fingers. So your index finger, your middle finger, etc., your pinky. And so you can use the thumb to kind of rub. So some people like to rub it. So your index and your thumb, or you could, with your other hand, you could squeeze each extremity at that point. Same thing, just, taking some breaths. Yeah, just squeezing and doing a few rounds that way. So you could have your hand under a table for your boardroom example. You could do this in your car. You're at a red light, waiting for the light to change, feeling a little antsy about that meeting that you're going to, right? You could do that in between, make good use of those lights that you're stopped at. So that's one way.
And you can do it preventatively too, right? Like you don't have to wait until the stress happens to do tapping. Like if you're going into a stressful situation, you can load up a charge, right?
You certainly can. Exactly. Thank you for bringing that up, because the other piece that I have to say is that the beauty of tapping is you can actually rewire your neural pathways in your brain. So I know, visualizations are huge, but you can actually get a daily double on your visualizations, right? If you visualize what it is that you want, or an affirmation that you have, I can do this, I deserve this, and you kind of tap it in. So it's like it sticks faster if you can tap and say these affirmations to yourself. So I like to say, like, imagine who's that person that you want to show up as. I'll give you an example. In my past, I was always sort of the shy, the introvert. I'm still an introvert, but the shy person, didn't like to talk. Just and I thought, well, this is not going to help me. If I want to get this message out into the world, I've got to show up. But if you're kind of programmed that way and highly sensitive and everything, it's that can be a really big thing, right? But so it's just like imagining, no, I want to be out there and I want to be teaching this, and I want to really, show people that they have this power within their fingers, because that message is so important. So but it helps if you can visualize, what does that look like? What posture are you in? What is the overriding feeling, that you're having in that moment? Is it fulfillment? Is it excitement? And so, like, just kind of allowing your head to go there, and tapping through it and feeling. It's just a really nice way to, give it that extra, boost there.
Yeah, it also gives you a pause, I would imagine, to think about why. So if you are really angry or stressed out, or you feel defensive, to just pause for a second and go, okay, what is my body trying to tell me? What am I actually afraid of here? What am I actually feeling? Why do I feel this way? Because sometimes if you can get to the root of the issue, I mean, that's a big,
exactly.
progress.
And with the tapping, as I said before, because consciously you might not have a clue. Like, you might go, I'm just feeling so uptight. Like, what's going on? And like, if you're analyzing, right, you might not know. But when you tap and you kind of, like I said, like, all of a sudden you go, oh, okay. Oh, yeah, okay, I see, I'm feeling like nobody's going to care what I have to say. That's what this is about. Yeah, okay. And then you can tap through all those sort of, resistances that keep us stuck, right? They're all fear-based, but then we can actually tap. And if you take tapping to the next level, and you do use words, you can actually tap on that. So you can say, even though it's not possible. So here's one more tapping point along the side of the hand, the fleshy side of the hand where your pinky is. If you use a few fingers of the opposite hand, you're sure to get the point. But actually, if you want to tap along with me, Chrissy, like, so I would, you could say something like, even though it's not possible for me to deliver a speech to 1,000 people, I still accept myself anyway. You always want to have what the issue is, and then the acceptance, because the acceptance piece is what's going to bring peace in the long run. When we stop resisting and we go, okay, yeah, this is how I feel, and this is the way I feel, and I'm not making any apologies for it, right? So even though it's not possible for me to address, let's make this simple, address a large audience, I still love and accept myself anyway.
Yes.
And then I would say that 2 more times, even though it's not possible for me to address a large audience. Yes. I'm okay with how I feel right now.
I love that. And I love that it's very honest, because I think in some of the movements out there for wellness, there's a little bit of that toxic positivity where you fake it so much, where you have to fake it till you make it. But I like to prefer face it till you make it. So, so this is a great way to do that.
Exactly.
It's amazing. So before we wrap up, can you tell us a little bit about your book and what people can find and how they can find you?
Sure. My book is called "Is This All There Is? Living a Life Beyond Obligation." So I think that says it all.
Yeah.
You can find it on my website, moniqueverpoort.com. And I've actually got, as a gift, there's the first couple of chapters in there. People can just go and they can download that on the book page. And I've also got I have a tab called Tapping Resources, where there's a lot of scientific studies that are there. So for people who are like, I don't know about this, The science is there. It's incredible. In the last decade, it's just like amplified so much. There is a tapping points chart, and there is a little instruction sheet just kind of reiterating what we're talking about now. So I just encourage people, please, go there and get that, and give it a try.
Absolutely. What's the worst that can happen when
Yeah.
it's not dangerous, it's not timely.
No,
It's yeah,
no
absolutely.
side
You have
effects.
you got nothing to lose. So you may as well give it a
Exactly.
try. Perfect.
And do it with, sorry, and do it, if you like it, do it with your kids. Do
Yes.
it together, because
Hmm.
they're picking up on your angst, right? And you're picking up on their angst. So make calm contagious. Like, do it at the same time and make it fun, especially for the little ones. The teens is a bit of a harder sell, but start with your young ones, because they got lots of worries right now in this world. So
They do. They
yeah.
do. They do. Yes. I have two teenagers. One is 13, one is 16. And yeah, their stress is definitely a little bit different than the stress I had growing up for sure. So
Mhm.
it's yeah. Yeah. And we do a lot of different. So this is one thing I'm definitely going to be trying with them. Are there any last words or tips or advice you'd like to leave with everybody?
Um, yeah, I think, we said it before, please, like, give it a try, give it a shot. You might be really surprised at how this strange looking thing actually can really help you get to a better place. And especially now, like, people need this, and just, yeah, be open-minded, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, that's my message.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time, Monique. We really appreciate you, and we'll make sure everything is in the show notes. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chrissy. It was a pleasure.